We're going to bring you the latest pictures from the Greek-Macedonian border first off this hour as a backdrop to the big story today. There are at least 14,000 refugees and migrants are still stuck in tents, waiting for some kind of opportunity to try to cross to the EU and what they hope is a better life. While in Athens, volunteers have been collecting much-needed help for those people stranded. Now, at the same time, as I say, the big story today regarding all this, in Brussels, EU leaders are right now meeting with Turkey to try and find ways to stem the flow of migrants reaching the bloc. Turkey's been playing a pivotal role in the migrant influx. At the moment, it hosts nearly 3 million Syrian refugees. It's also the main gateway for more than 2,000 who cross each and every day into Greece. Greece's capacity to accept those huge numbers is coming under heavy strain, and though Turkey was supposed to bring much-needed relief, thousands are still pouring in. But that hasn't stopped the Turkish and Greek sides apparently cozying up in Brussels. Let's go live now to Europe, then our Europe correspondent is joining us now. Hi, Peter Oliver. So much talk leading up to these talks today, but as I just said, with thousands of immigrants arriving daily, hitting this bottleneck now in Europe, it's concrete action, I guess consensus that's so very urgently needed now. But is it going to happen?
Well, there were three key points that we were expecting to hear as the results of these all-important talks taking place in Brussels. They were the Balkan route used by migrants and refugees to access the EU being closed off, the open door policy that's had been extended being shut down, and all non-Syrian refugees and migrants being deported back to Turkey. Now, in order to do that, of course, they'd need Turkey on side. So what would Turkey perhaps want in order to agree to such a deal? There are some suggesting they would like to see their ascension to full EU membership sped along. There's also those suggesting that they could want to see access to the Schengen zone, the passport-free, borderless travel zone inside the European Union. There's also, as well, the chance that they could ask for a lot more money. We're hearing that it could run to billions of euro, the amount asked by Ankara from the EU in order to deal with this. Turkey's already received quite a substantial chunk of cash, but there are concerns across Europe about handing over so much money to Ankara at this particular moment.
Outsourcing our problems to Turkey is naive. We should not sell our soul for a deal with a country simply because we are incapable of dealing with our problems and implementing a real European solution.
Taking over the full cost of the services that Turkey is providing by accommodating and caring for the refugees could easily add up to 6 or 7 billion euros a year to the bill.
I am strongly against giving billions of euros to Turkey because Turkey cannot and does not want to do anything with these migrants.
Well, it's not just politicians that are objecting to the plan to send refugees back to Turkey. We're also hearing from refugee groups, particularly those surrounding the United Nations, who say that it's potentially illegal. Now, one of the things that they've brought up is that although Turkey is a signatory to the Geneva Convention on Refugees, when it comes to Iraqis and Afghans who would make up the majority of those sent back to Turkey, their rights would pretty much not be worth the paper that they're written on. There's also indications that this particular plan could breach the EU's own rules when it comes to dealing with refugees. Now, this would put into place something that's called pushbacks that isn't allowed. Pushbacks are those that are sent from the European Union to another country without having all of their documentation sufficiently registered and logged. Something that we're seeing right now in Macedonia, along that border, and in parts of Eastern Europe, in the Balkan area of Europe as well. Now, this has prompted senior figures within the UN who deal with refugees to say, go ahead, EU, push ahead with this plan. And let's see what the European courts have to say. So, even if we do get a deal in Brussels, may not be the end of the road when it comes to this controversial plan that's being debated to send non-Syrians from Europe back to Turkey.
And of course, Peter, forefront of everyone's mind as well is what is best personally for those immigrants themselves as well. A lot to think about. We'll be coming back to you later when we try and maybe get some answers from that meeting. Thanks for now. Well, as Peter was saying there, Ankara has already received part of that promised money, and in turn it's increased its efforts to prevent illegal sea crossings to the EU. Since the beginning of the year, Turkey stopped around 15,000 migrants, but According to the UN, the total number of illegal crossings in that period increased almost tenfold. A former deputy speaker of the Belgian parliament told us earlier he suspects the money from Europe will be used elsewhere.
If you would have some kind of stable situation where people can survive more or less in camps within Turkey, so they do not risk their own lives fleeing to the Greek islands and further on, that could be a short-term solution. Yes, indeed. And Turkey is perfectly capable of doing that if Europe would give the amount of logistical, not just financial support for doing that. The problem is I have strong doubts that the people in power in Turkey will indeed use that money as it is being proposed to them.